The on-screen talent featured throughout the Overwatch League is some of the best in all of esports. Knowledge of the game and its history is second to none, and those conveying the information have undeniable chemistry on screen as everyone shares one common goal: to do their absolute best in helping the scene grow. Now recently, there has been prolific discussion regarding the current landscape of analysis within competitive Overwatch. Arguments have been raised underscoring a lack of depth throughout the daily desk segments, whilst analysts have had to defend their stance time and again. Should we be catering to those with countless hours in the game that desire high-level breakdowns to match their game sense? Or should we more so be emphasizing the importance of catering to those who may just be discovering Overwatch for the first time through this stream, a very likely possibility that our community tends to neglect more often than not? There's a slight identity crisis occurring before us as analysts serve not only to dive deeply into every map, but also to hype up the matches and entice viewers to stick around, something we don't see in other sports that have been well established for many decades. That's an extraordinary workload as those on screen have to strike a balance between simplifying concepts for the newcomers whilst elaborating enough to appease the more passionate and dedicated demographic. Now this video isn't here to choose a side, but rather acknowledge that there are in fact multiple perspectives on the matter and offer ways to improve the state of analysis in the scene moving forward for both predominant schools of thought. To start, it's necessary to understand that other more developed scenes have found their footing and have passionate followings as a result. Now Overwatch specifically, and esports in general, is still relatively new to the masses. We need to heighten excitement in order to boost viewership and find footing of our own. We want newcomers to tune in and enjoy their viewing experience enough to the point where they want to come back, perhaps develop a bond with a team or player they like, and so on and so forth. So in order to strike a chord with those new to the stream, we have to have analysts and commentators excited for all upcoming matches. However, in the process, we can't neglect honesty in favor of the hype. This is where the prediction segment comes into play. It's a simple way to generate excitement as analysts debate vast possibilities within each match. I think we need to be placing more of an emphasis on this section of the broadcast in particular. The reason I hold it with such high regard is because not only is it simple enough for brand new viewers to understand, but it's also entertaining for those that have tuned in since Season 1 of Apex. It's a universal tool that everyone can benefit from if executed appropriately. Take a look at this example from the first match of Stage 3. Whilst obviously I'm not about to fault the opinions of the analysts, they are after all just opinions, I'm instead focusing blame on the lack of explanation here as the segment was hurried along in order to reach the first map, as are almost all prediction segments these days. As a new viewer to the stream, perhaps someone who saw a tweet from ESPN about Gregory taking to the stage and decided to see what the fuss was about, based off of this introduction alone, new viewers would go into the match assuming that the Shanghai team were the odds-on favourite as all three members of the desk lacked hesitation when siding with the Dragons for victory. Obviously we absolutely need excitement, and obviously it's important to get the crowd amped up, but this needs to be achieved without expending the legitimacy of the analysts. It wouldn't be fair to just pinpoint this specific example alone. There are numerous instances of similar happenings. Zoe, for the most part, tends to side with whichever team the crowd cheers for the most before giving her prediction, and that is totally fine. Again, we want a good energy in the arena, however the actual analysis still needs to be prevalent. My suggestion for improving this would be to slightly extend the duration of the segment, as to allow for overall predictions as well as specific map score predictions. In doing so, we would create space for analysts to discuss why certain teams perform better on certain maps, and just what the opposition can do to counter it. Seen for the first time in Stage 3, this new graphic displays the current win-loss rate for the two teams about to do battle. This is such a great starting point as viewers ranging across all levels of game knowledge can clearly see which team is the statistical favourite on each map, giving way to incredibly exciting moments when the underdogs find a way to trump the team with a perfect win record. Now we need to set a precedent and be doing this for even the less enticing series, because there have been times where the crowd has mostly gone home, the energy is entirely shot, viewership is in decline, and whilst that is in large part due to the incredibly lengthy schedule and really long days, we should still be trying to generate just as much hype as possible. Discuss the potential outcomes, but analyze with accuracy and tact. Don't just predict the hometown team will win to get a cheap pop. Be studious, own your statements, and discuss the matches with an air of legitimacy, or else you might lose credibility and everyone might start to tune out of the desk segments as a whole. Also, just as a minor side note, not to be bleak for all too long or anything, but can we please stop allowing analysts to retract their predictions midway through a match? Unless this is professional wrestling and you're the heel commentator, this just shouldn't be a thing. No other sport does this. But regardless of all of that, another way that we can better utilize analysts throughout the league would be to implement mid-match breakdowns. In between rounds, we're currently served to shots of the teams often just going about their business, whilst the commentary team, for better or for worse, fills time. Sometimes we're treated to explanations, other times we're taken on hilarious tangents. However, it could be hugely beneficial if we had analysts come into play during this 60 to 90 seconds of downtime. Now this is actually kinda hilarious because I was writing the script for this video alongside the second day of matches in Stage 3, and lo and behold, as I'm writing this exact paragraph, I see the team implementing just this idea in the middle of the Fusion Uprising series. We can see it happening already, but it certainly would be great to continue to develop on this. Introducing the telestrator where possible, for example, would be an excellent step forward. Sometimes there are great moments throughout phases of a map that don't get the recognition they deserve. The more minuscule things that prove to have massive ripple effects, these could be the talking points for analysts mid-match, a way for all viewers to gain a better understanding of every aspect of play. Similarly, we could see the introduction of mid-series breakdowns. Now this could take many forms. Perhaps it's just minor dot points from the analysts that appear on screen throughout the break alongside or instead of statistics. Maybe we see specific viewer questions answered on stream by the analysts throughout the break, or it could even take the form of a new command center function where analysts continue discussing certain factors all throughout the break. I'm not going to pretend to understand the logistical side of things here, but if it wasn't too intensive on the production crew, even utilizing the telestrator here as well would be absolutely phenomenal. It would be great to be able to deeply discuss intricate aspects of a map where commentators simply aren't able to, as they obviously need to keep up with the action in the moment. The 3-minute breaks between matches are clearly necessary for advertising purposes, hence why the suggestion was made for this aspect to be a command center exclusive feature if need be. An additional suggestion comes in the form of weekly video packages similar to what we already see throughout the daily production at the moment. We have Malik's talk show, Mr. X driving around, not to mention the countless well-executed segments designed to share the stories of the players and the teams. These are all fantastic and should definitely continue to be part of the daily show, as well as feature prominently throughout Watchpoint each week. This is the perfect model for new analytical content to follow in order to rise to the surface. This is the type of content that appeases both sides of the argument. It's something that could easily satiate the most hardcore Overwatch League viewers out there, while still being easily digestible enough for newcomers to the scene. Mentioned on the analysts' own streams time and again, we well know that they obviously have assigned days on the desk. Other than that, we assume that they're researching future matchups, streaming in their own time, watching the matches at the arena as a fan, or simply just enjoying a well-deserved break. Now maybe they don't write the scripts themselves if that's too demanding considering their already rigorous schedule. Certainly wouldn't expect them to edit the content together, but one would assume they have ample amount of time to go out and record audio for such analytical segments when needed. These videos could dive into specific concepts, how certain teams outperformed their competition, even to the likes of individual breakdowns highlighting the minutiae of battle from a single player's perspective. There's a wide breadth of ideas here to jump on that could seriously benefit those that are exposed to the content. Now my final suggestion for improvement overall would be for analysts to play a role in creating videos or articles that pinpoint marquee matchups in the week ahead. Matchups that simply can't be missed, because right now, whilst we the hardcore audience are well aware of which teams are at the top of the rankings and know when two titans are about to square off, the casual viewer isn't necessarily exposed to that during the off days. Every single match is more or less marketed in the exact same way, kind of just occur one after the other. The final match of the day is never considered the main event or the pinnacle of competition in that moment, as again this is just another detriment of the oversaturation of content that accommodates the relentless schedule. Analysts could play a vital role here in preparing content that outlines just why everyone should be tuning in at certain times. To serve as an appropriate comparison, being a longtime MMA fan, it's been interesting to see how things have panned out over the past few years for the UFC. People often wonder why certain events don't receive the viewership that they deserve when two of the best in the world are competing, but arguably the biggest factor in that regard is the fact that there's simply too much happening. They pump out too many events. When there's a card every single week of a month, for example, it can get too difficult to entice newcomers to want to devote such a huge amount of time when all they really want is to watch the biggest matchups. It's the exact same thing we're seeing here with the Overwatch League regular season. There's simply too much happening day in day out for newcomers to assess which 2-hour match they should free up time for. If we have video previews or detailed articles dissecting a few key matchups from the week, it could incur an increase in viewership as people who don't check out the schedule ahead of time will now know just what matches to look out for. It could honestly even be just as simple as having a quick desk segment at the end of every week. After the final game is said and done, Puckett or Golden Boy could ask the members of the desk what their match of the next week is. We could use a similar graphic to that of the predictions, and that's it. Just a quick, easy discussion of why some matchups should be more anticipated than others. We'd break it out, upload it as its own little video, and that's it. A lot more people will be able to comprehend the week to come. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to address with this video. I do think that the current state of analysis in the league does really well at capturing both schools of thought. However, I think we can be doing more, and since the scene is rapidly expanding, there's no time like the present to implement some adjustments, appease the community, and elevate everyone's level of game sense in the process. As always, thanks for tuning in. Do feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you think all of my points are wildly off base, or if you have any unique ideas of your own. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next one.